here. Oh boy, Facebook's online. YouTube is online. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. This is Crates. Uh, we're here with Geo, and Elliot and Steve are taking the night off. We're going to do a little more pair programming today and have a look at the feature that we nearly finished yesterday. It really came a long ways along. It's pretty exciting. So we've been working on this for a couple of weeks now, just a little bit here and there at a time, and showing how with literally like 2 hours a week we're able to put together this app. So where we were at last time on the last stream, which was last night, we had successfully put together this. We were working on this checklist feature here, and we successfully got it to do the mutations on Hasura. So this is this VieDay mindfulness, productivity, and organization app that we're building, and one of the things that we're trying to include on there is a very similar to To-Do MVC style app that allows you to just check off the things that you're supposed to be doing that day. So we're checking off things like, you avoided screens before bed, or in this case, we're making GraphQL our biatch. So you'll notice that two of the items here are already checked off, and the reason why they're checked off is because it looks like our mutation's working, but we got a couple of bugs. And so just to refresh everybody's memory, and for anybody who didn't see it last time, let's go ahead and take a look at the inspector here. So when we look at our mutations, what's happening is we're getting a double fire on our mutations, and so when we click one of these guys, we're seeing that. Let me go ahead and clear these results. I'm going to click one of these other guys here. You're not going to see me doing that, but I just clicked another item here, so we should get a request in GraphQL, and that I expect will show what we were seeing yesterday, which is a double fire. The first one succeeds and says, hey, we inserted a new checklist item here. We successfully mutated the database. Then we got an error that said, uh-oh, we got a duplicate key value because we've already inserted against that date and that user and the action ID. And that's intentional. And uh-oh, looks like we've got even more than two. So we got like 6 fires there on one mutation. So that's not going to work for us. That's not good. So having a look at IntelliJ, why did that happen, right? So where we were at last time we looked at this is we had put together this sequence that's using useEffect. And so I added a little to-do item here that we want to debounce. So if anybody hasn't heard of what debouncing is, basically what that means is it's like there's two different similar concepts. One of them is throttling, and the other one is debouncing. And throttling is when you're saying, hey, slow down, guys. So if you imagine you had a bunch of people that were waiting in line and you had to get them all through, a security checkpoint at the airport. Well, when you're throttling them, you slow down the speed at which people are going through the security checkpoint. Debouncing is a little different. Debouncing says, I'm not going to let any more than a certain number through. So that's more like the bouncer at a nightclub where you're at capacity and the next guy, he says, get out of here. I can't let you in. So with debouncing, you're not actually going to expect that every one gets through. And in this case, that's exactly what we want. Unlike throttling, where we're just going to slow things down, we actually want to reject any mutations that are extending beyond the window of time when we wanted to run them on. So unlike throttling, where we eventually let everybody through the airport security checkpoint, when you think of debounce, think of the bouncer at the nightclub where some people get turned away. So we're already using Lodash selectively here, and so we should have a debounce function available to us as part of Lodash. And I'm just going to go ahead and check the API on that, and I'll pretend like it's for all you guys watching at home, but really, even the best hackers, well, that's not true. Some of the very best, like my friends from Oppenheimer Funds, like Beck and Debony, they seem to know the APIs all by heart. But all the rest of us, mere mortals, usually end up having to check the web every 10 seconds and look at Stack Overflow and everything. So
Truth.
that's definitely a necessary part of the job. So you should never feel ashamed if you have to look something up. I'm doing it all day, every day, and I've been doing this for 20 plus years. Let's go ahead and look at the Lodash debounce. And I'm not a huge fan of the way that Lodash manages their documentation. It is kind of cool that they can just quickly sort and filter this one document, but I wish that they had included some type of mechanism so that when you click on a search result, it actually takes you directly to that section of the docs. Unfortunately, their single page application doesn't really seem to have a concept of that. And I apologize if anybody's seeing my computer running super slow here. That's going to be me streaming. I'm going to replace this with a better one at some point. We'll get there eventually. In the meantime, if you're listening to the music here, this song is a joint collaboration between myself and Gio here, who's on the stream tonight, with our band Sonic Source. We're working on this rock opera called Phantasmagoria, and this is a track from the first act, just the instrumental part, called Heresy. I really love how this one turned out. So we're getting there slowly but surely. There's our debounce function. Cool. So we're going to need to give it the function that we want, the number of milliseconds that we're going to hang on to. And I'm just going to make sure that I've got my story straight here. So even though I've done this 100 times before, measure twice and cut once, right? So I'm going to make sure that I haven't mixed up my wires on debouncing and throttling before we go any further. If I got them backwards, I'm not going to get the results I want. Yeah, so debounce groups multiple events together as one. And then waits before triggering function execution until the events stop happening so rapidly. So if we use the leading flag, or potentially immediate, depending on what version we're using. Now we're on Lodash. We're going to want yeah, leading is the one that we want. This is saying use the library directly. That's what we're using there. And then throttle guarantees the execution of the function regularly at least every X milliseconds. So I think we're good with debounce. We're just going to use the, I'm glad I checked this because that taught me something that I wasn't looking out for, which is that we want to use the leading method, options leading, to invoke on the leading edge of the timeout. So we're going to do that. And then we're also going to include wait, and that's going to ensure that we are waiting enough time. I think probably every 500 milliseconds is the most frequency with which we would want to do this. So now to implement this, we've already imported debounce from Lodash. We're going to go down to where this mutation is called inside the use effect here. And something that I'm not clear on from here is whether or not this supports a promise convention and if I can do anything after the first run. So maybe what I'll do is put this into another method here and call that. I think that maybe simplifies this. We'll say oh, you know what? I can't do what I was about to do because insert checked mutation is a oh wait, no, that's a product of a hook. It's not a hook itself, so it doesn't need to be called at the root level. So let's see if this works actually. Let's go ahead and give this a shot. So we'll say constant run insert is equal to, and then we'll do debounce, and then the first one is insert checked mutation, and we're going to wait 500 milliseconds, and then we're going to use this object here to say leading is true, so that it runs on the leading edge of the timeout instead of the tail end. And you can't see any of that because I'm not on IntelliJ right now, so give me a second to move that over for you guys. Sorry about that. There we go. So I've added const run insert there, and we're going to debounce that insert check mutation for 500 milliseconds with this leading option turned on. And I'm just double checking that API to make sure I've got that API signature correctly. So come on, I'm getting that beach ball.
Spinning beach ball. Yeah.
Doom! Doom! We'll get there. I'm asking Santa for a new computer for Christmas. So, you know, whatever gets here first, this page load or the computer.
At this point, it might be the computer.
Right? Oh, nice. Yeah, that took so long that it actually closed the wrong tab. Here we go. Maybe we should blame Google because, you know, it does know enough contextually that it's showing the right text next to it. And it seems like there are anchor tags here that could potentially work. Although it didn't actually bring me to the debounce section when we used that anchor tag either, so it's a little embarrassing if Lodash's documentation doesn't even correctly support its own anchor tags that are used to navigate it when you refresh it. But I guess these guys are too busy with other problems, huh? Fixing every other part that's broken about JavaScript. So yeah, I'm just double checking this API again. Looks like there's a max wait. We're not really worried about that because we're using leading is true. We got our wait time. That's how long it's gonna prevent from reissuing more calls to that method. I think we're good. Let's see how we did. So I'm back in IntelliJ here. We've got our run insert. We got to make another change here. Now I'm not really as concerned about the asynchronous nature of this insert check mutation because I believe that by the time the set state resolves, we will already have made use of the reference to action ID. Now, maybe I'll end up eating crow and find out that this is incorrect, but I'm seeing how speedy this is going down, and at the moment, I'm not too concerned about it. So for the moment, let's go ahead and just run insert here, and then set action, no action. And I'll know if I screwed myself on this one if I end up seeing that my mutation runs with no action ID. If my mutation starts running with no action ID, that means that there's a race condition here, and my set action, no action is completing before my run insert is completing. And so if that's the case, we're going to have to go back to a promise convention and figure out how to get our debounce method to then hand off to a callback that sets the action to no action. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's see if we solved our problem here. So I'm saving that, and hopefully we are getting some kind of update here. I see my tab reloading in the background, so let's jump back over there. And I'm running out of options here because I might have to go into the database and delete some. We haven't gotten to the deletion mutation yet, but let's see how we're doing here. And just to make sure that I've got my inspector open, you're not going to see both at the same time, but I'll keep that open as well so I can keep tabs on that GraphQL mutation as it goes out.
Is that an error, or is that just a highlight on the line in your code?
Over here, yeah, this is, it looks like, oh, I did introduce an error. That's a good catch. Me switching between my windows here has introduced a bad character here. A good catch, Gio. I've been making that mistake over and over again, but I've got a toolbox showing up any minute now. That should hopefully make it easier for me to switch between the windows here and run execution commands to switch between the various screens without introducing these weird characters. So that'll be something to add to our bag of tricks any minute now. Maybe next week we'll do that with that added in. What you're listening to now is an instrumental by Matt Goot. Able Body is the name of the instrumental, and this one is one of his older bits. I'm gonna say like 12 years ago. So he went off to work for dealer.com in Burlington, Vermont. I hope he's doing well. I haven't heard from him in a while. So something didn't go right here. I think maybe we got a console error. Let's go ahead and dip over to the console and see what's up. No, it was just running real slow. So base 64 is not encryption. I love my status messages. I'll let you guys see that there too. That's right. Obscurity is not security. So don't just try to run something through a two-way cipher and expect you to be able to maintain the integrity of that data. So I'm going to clear out any GraphQL requests that came in before we loaded, and I'm clicking here on drink less than 32 ounces of soda juice. So what I saw there is what looks to me like a success. I'm going to switch over to the terminal so you can see we clicked on that link and only got one network request going over the wire this time. So that looks like a success to me. We've successfully debounced our query, and now we're not getting a double mutation. So no more foreign key violation there. But the other problem that we have is if I switch back over to our Chrome window, you guys are going to see that my soda juice option didn't actually get toggled here. So if I refresh, I almost guarantee you that it will get shown. So the next question is, how do we defer loading long enough for the mutation to be reflected in the database and then cycle back when we reload? Because as you can see here, it did take effect, but then it just reloaded immediately, and so our state was inconsistent. There was another state that finished running when the insert finished running on the database side, but our app reloaded so fast that that we didn't see the update right away. Any thoughts on that one, Gio?
My first thought is to basically decouple the strike action with the database update. So making the strike through a purely front end function, and while simultaneously updating the back end, but having them decoupled from one another. Like if clicked at this style and fire this call to update it on the back end.
It's not a bad idea. So what you're talking about is lazy loading, and I did have a quick peek at the docs before we started tonight. I swear we're not scripting this. But if we look at GraphQL, CodeGen, lazy loading, They do provide support for lazy loaded hooks right in the generation that was already done. So I noticed that when I ran my initial generation of the queries I've got like a use get daily checked items query, but then I've also got use get daily checked items lazy query. I don't know if that also applies to mutations though, because I'm looking over the generated ones right here. Looks like that's only applying for the fetches and not the mutations. So the question is, we know that as soon as the mutation begins to run, it's going to issue a redraw. So it doesn't matter what we're doing locally with the state if that gets merged with the GraphQL query that comes in from the remote server.
Is it already an asynchronous call?
Yeah, I think so. The problem that we have here is we run the mutation, it's loading. So I want to give this one a little bit more thought. I'm not really sure what the solution is going to be. But let's see if we can find. So this is the methodology that we were using. We didn't use this tutorial specifically, but we're using GraphQL code gen because it's really great for generating schemas and hooks really quickly. But what we really need is to get that mutation data consistent. So the good question that I have now is in the data model that comes back after the mutation, are we getting a cached copy? It looks like there is a refetch queries option that we might not be using. So that might be the trick here. We might need to specify refetch queries option here. So let's see if we can figure out a way to use refetch queries with GraphQL code gen. Await refetch queries equals true, and then which queries we want to refetch. Let's see if this ever got implemented. Ah, man. While updating Apollo cache by refetching queries is not the cleanest option, it's still arguably the easiest way to keep a consistent UI. It's a shame that there's no real updates on this in over a year and a half. Let's leave a little comment here.
Mueller.
And I'll give it a thumbs up. Me too, I said. But he did say he included it in TypeScript React Apollo, which I think I'm using. So I have to wonder if there's if by baking it in there's any way for us to access that or use that. Let's see what this use insert checked mutation includes base options, mutation hook options. Okay. Check mutation. So let's see what Apollo mutation hook options provide support for. Operation variables is where variables, the data is the data. Yeah, so it looks like this does provide support for refetch queries. I don't know the first thing about using it, but let's see. Oops. Through. And this should hopefully and then this needs to be an array of at a minimum strings. So what we really want is whatever this is used get daily checked items. So are these named queries? If they were, we would probably find that in the GraphQL file that we have for daily checklist here. So yeah, let's get daily checked items. Let's see if it's this simple. I sincerely doubt that it will be, but
We can hope.
one can only hope. Wouldn't that be a treat? Something were easy for once. I'm getting some weird typo in word refetch. Screw you. And you guys didn't see the code changes there. Sorry about that. So real quick, while it's reloading the page here, I'm going to jump back over to IntelliJ. You can see what we added is right here. Await refetch queries is true, and refetch queries get daily checked items. Now, what I saw elsewhere is that we had to write out the actual query a little bit more verbose there. I'm not so sure that's going to work, but we could try. Take your time. Boy, oh boy. it's a catch-22, man. If the computer was faster, then things would be a lot snappier, and the program would be a lot more interesting, and then we'd have a lot more subscribers, and then I'd have a lot more revenue, and I could use that to buy a new computer.
Vicious cycle.
Uh-oh. I broke it with another euro symbol.
And now we wait again.
Yeah, another 30 or 40 minutes and we'll be back in business. That one happened instantly. What the hell is this? You guys are bananas. Nothing makes sense.
Well, I'd rather make dollars than make sense.
Wouldn't that be nice? When you work for one of the big 4 auditing firms, you get paid in free paper clips. Not just paper clips. They give you like the really big, thick file clips, you know. You get these guys right here. Yeah. All you can eat. Oh. All right, so I'm going to clear my terminal console thingy here, and I'm going to issue another mutation. Okay, so that definitely didn't do what I expected it to, but also it loaded, it did not redo the whole, it didn't reload the whole page. It just ran that one query and then kept the state as it was. So I think your initial hunch was probably right, Rob. What we got to do is just update the state optimistically as if that had, oh, and I introduced an extra character there too. So before we can test this, I'll have to go in and delete a couple records from the database because now our code's working too good. So we'll get a couple of records out of the list of data here in Hasura, and then we're going to go ahead and see if we can figure out how to update that model optimistically when a change has taken place with our debounced insert run. So that's going to take a little bit of shaping of the data that we have in our presentation layer in just a second. So first things first, let's go ahead and remove some of these items that we just checked off. I'm glad to see that the date bug is fixed as well. We don't have any real users yet, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete everything that's corresponding to this date. And what would that look like? Well, I suppose we could add a new state object that says okay, so now I've added a new constant called recently checked, and that's going to be anything that we've tacked on since the last time the page was loaded. And so anytime that we run this insert operation here, we will also run a command here to insert that in our list of items that was checked. So we had some code here earlier that was showcasing what checklist looked like, and we deleted it because I didn't think we were going to need it again, but I'm going to bring it back because I want to see once again what our data model looks like directly. So here we're doing in a pre-formatted block, we'll do JSON.stringify, and that's going to turn our checklist into a string. that is spaced out by 2 spaces with no replacer. And that'll give us an idea what our checklist looks like so that I know what we're manipulating here. Now, I got a lot of friends in the field that would tell you that the right way to do this is with unit tests, and I agree with all of them, but we're not going to do it the right way today. We're just going to get the job done.
The right way and the fast way.
And truthfully, you know, and that's the perspective I think at pretty much every organization except the ones who do unit tests religiously, because it's such a common apprehension that unit tests on the whole will slow your project down, when truthfully, when you really get into it and you do them consistently, they only ever speed things up. But because we have no unit tests to crib from right now, we don't have any examples of anything that we've done previously, and I'm honestly just being lazy about it. We're going to do it this way for now, and use a couple of cheats like this and console logs and breakpoints. But if you ever use those in the field, I'm going to have to slap you with a newspaper rolled up like a naughty puppy. And then I have to have a conversation with HR. It's a whole thing, so let's not do that. So here's a list of what we got. And I think the way this works is basically we need to take whatever action is being added to the list and pop it into the list. Or more accurately, we need to find the ID and set the ID to checked true. So here's how I want to do this. I'm actually going to use an object because we're going to make the IDs the keys. And you'll see why in a minute. So actually, no, I don't think we need keys, but I do want to use Lodash's version of extend. So let's do that, and then let's do what we were talking about a second ago. We'll go ahead and make the item that we're assigning all of this stuff to a bunch of objects where the key, or just a single object rather, where the key is the ID and the value is just going to be true, instead of an array. And I think the reason will become clear in a minute. So I don't think we're going to need this refetch queries now that I have a better understanding of what the problem is here. So we'll leave that out. I've just deleted that, and I'm going to make sure you guys can see here what I'm doing in IntelliJ. So I'm running down into, I've changed our recently checked to be an object, and then over here where we're about to run our insert, before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and set our recently checked, and that's going to be equal to extend an empty object with recently checked and everything that's in it, and then we're going to add a new key, an object that has only one key in it, and that key is going to be, and actually we'll do it like this to make it a little easier. So const added item is equal to empty object added item action dot action ID is equal to true. And then over here we're just extending the object of recently checked with added item. So that should give us an additional added item with the action ID true there. and then when we're actually displaying this information, we're going to merge that data in the presentation layer, which means basically after all of our hooks and other crap. So now our checklist that we're using here is a concatenation of unchecked and checked, but want to go ahead and find any IDs that match for, so here we said we're going to map over the checklist checked items and object assign the object action, and then checked is true, ID is object ID, action ID, and so on. I think what we need to figure out here is how do we add to that list of checked, how do we move items from unchecked to checked if their IDs are in the list of recently checked. So for one, if they're going to be unchecked, they have to not be included in there, and also and recently checked. So we've got one here for checked IDs. I think we need to concatenate this. Dot concatenate with another map of recently checked. And for this, we actually just need to, since it's just a list of IDs, we just need to include the keys of recently checked. So this is where keys is going to come in, and I'll import that in a second as well. What keys does is it takes an object that has, or any object, and it just spits out all the keys of it. So we'll grab that from Lodash as well. So now our checked IDs includes everything that was in checked, but also everything that was in recently checked. And so actually we don't need to change anything over here. Our unchecked list is now going to be accurate, but we have one last problem, which is that our list of checked items does not include our recently checked items, and so we need to concatenate that to our checked items list. I know it's a mouthful, it's a lot to think about, but let's go ahead and figure out recently checked actions is equal to, and this is going to be very similar. It'll be actions.filter, but instead of this, it'll be, actually let's simplify this as well. So we're going to change this to recently checked keys, and I'll show you why that is in a second as well. So I'm thinking about time space complexity here. I want to run that keys function twice. So we're going to say recently checked keys is equal to keys. Don't need to run that twice. And that way we can use it twice. And this is kind of like refactoring as we go, so we don't have to do it later. As soon as you think of an optimization, sometimes it's the best time to get it in there. So now if recently checked keys includes object ID from actions, and there's got to be an easier way to do this, but we'll refactor that part a little bit later because I don't know exactly how I want to do that yet. What I do know is that now I've got a recently checked actions list, and so I'd like to try and take that and let's go ahead and concat. We'll sort these a little bit later too. We don't need to do that right now, but let's concatenate checked with recently checked actions. Boy, do we do a lot there. Okay, so now we're basically moving one item that if it's been recently checked out of the unchecked list and into the checked list. Doesn't like it here. No overload matches this call. Not really sure what they mean by that. Check.concat. Recently checked actions. You know what? We should be able to just put a comma here for now. And again, we'll worry about sorting this a little bit later.
That DS2639.
That was another euro symbol. Okay. So I think we're good on major errors now. I have no idea how this is going to pan out. I was just kind of freeballing it here. Let's see how we what kind of results we got. Line 69.
It's the one you just got rid of.
It is, so it's still recompiling. Hey, there we go. Oh, it's still reloading. Still recompiling. I don't understand why this thing's running so slow. I mean, it has an 800 megahertz Celeron 3 processor.
This time I gave it any downtime.
When was the last time I gave myself any downtime?
Computers need breaks too, Crates.
Not if I don't. I can't really tell if this is like a timing thing because of how slow the computer's running right now. Let's go ahead and clear this log. I'm going to try this with a fresh... Okay, so we do have something going on here. I would expect this to be a foreign, yeah. We're going to get a key violation there because that one already would have run by now. Yeah, let's try that one more time with a different one here. Now we shouldn't see a uniqueness violation on this other one here, although clearly it's not merging the objects the way I'd hoped it would. I do see that that second mutation ran just fine, but I'm not seeing these two objects getting unified correctly. So I would expect at the end of that list my recently checked actions to follow the same convention here, and it looks like my recently checked actions doesn't seem to include what I would expect it to add. So I'm going to give this a little extra thought. I think this is where we're going to call it for tonight. We'll circle back to this tomorrow at around 8 p.m. And I have some thoughts here. I think one of the things I'd like to see done a little differently here is to, on our operation over here where we're adding the item, I'd like to actually harvest the action data directly here instead of doing all the heavy lifting later in the presentation layer. So I do have some thoughts. We'll figure that out. But if you are tuning in, thank you so much. And don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll keep doing this until this app is built. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments and we'll get back to you. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Take care. Peace out. Peace out.
In Canada. Peace out.